What is good, everybody? Your favorite real estate duo is back. Marv, Wallace, in the building for another video on personal finances. We wanted to make this video to bring you guys about personal finances because, quite frankly, so many of us get this area messed up in our life. And I know we had a couple examples that we wanted to get into to kind of help break this down and how you can get a hold and how you should get a hold of your personal finances when it comes to certain things.
Yeah, so I just think we are actually here to solve a very big problem in this world because we see lots of problem going on in this world, and we want to contribute and do our best to let the world know that certain things we are able to help as long as you're willing to listen. So today we actually have to talk about the mortgage industry, about the 38% rule, because that really pissed me off. Reason being is because I have seen, especially in this country, a lot of the people lose their properties, lose their homes to the auction. And why? The main problem is that 38% rule. Because we all know in United States, when you buy a home, right, these stupid people will tell you, oh, you know what? However much you make, you should never go past by 38%. And that 38% is really the number that actually murder a lot of the homeowners. So for instance, I remember I also was one of those guys who buy a property back in the day, my first property in 2010, right? So let me tell you, my net income at my job was $2,500. Okay, so at the time, based on my gross income, the 38% was $1,400. So right now, I want you guys to put all these numbers in your calculator, okay? If anyone makes 2,500 and your mortgage payment is 1,400, would you agree that leaves you 1,100 exactly, right? So at the time, with $1,100, I had a child and a wife. I was the only one who was working, okay? So with $1,100 left, my car payment was almost 300. So that leaves me 800. And then do I have to pay the gas, the insurance, and the food, the utility? So the bottom line is every month I had to figure out a way to either put in some overtime at my job or ask my parents to borrow some money. Bottom line is 2,500 is nowhere near to be enough to make a mortgage payment of 1,400. But I don't know who created this magic number, whether it's 38%, 37% of your gross income can be the affordable mortgage, monthly mortgage payment for the next 30 years. And whoever created that, seriously, God bless him. Because this person really screwed up so many families in this country, in this world. Okay? Because, Marvin, let's talk about fast forward to 2025.
Right.
So if I buy a Jaguar, the same Jaguar you have, right? I go to Jaguar dealership. How much I should be paying? What's the price today, 2025?
I mean, if you bought it brand new, you would be paying at least 100.
Okay.
For it.
All right. So $100,000, right? So now let's say we are lucky people. We all make $10,000 a month. Okay. My 17-year-old child, last year when she turned 16, when she was 16, I bought her a birthday gift for a car for $86,000, right? And I just did the math. The car payment, if I didn't pay all cash, the car payment should have been $2,300 to $2,400 a month. Okay, so let's say we are lucky, we are blessed, having great jobs, making $10,000 a month. Okay, which I know in this country, most people are making nowhere near than 10,000. Let's just say you're lucky.
Right.
At 10,000, if your car payment, your Jaguar is like 100,000, 120,
Yeah.
110. All right. So my daughter's price is lower, 85, 86,000. You're paying 23, 2,400. So at his price, you pay like $3,000, right? So first thing, at 10,000, we all agree we got to pay income taxes, right? Would you roughly say 40%?
Yeah.
All right, so that leaves you $6,000. $6,000 if the car payment is $3,000. So now you got only $3,000 left, right? So that $3,000, I don't even think that will be enough to pay your mortgage. If your car payment is $3,000, shit, your mortgage payment better be $6,000.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not gonna live in a cheaper house than your car is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to make this video to make the world understand whoever tells you you can afford 38% or 37%, that person is smoking crack. That person probably is the least educated person on this earth. I am so sorry that, my language can be friendly, can be clean today, because, I got really upset about, morons creating numbers like that and thinking like they're the mortgage expert, whatever. So this video, you have to pay attention that however much money you make, in order for you to pay 38% of your gross, that means you are guaranteed you are not going to experience any like a hardship in your life. You're not going through a divorce, separation. You're not going to ever get laid off, right? And you will always get a raise every year, which is never the case. We all know, as far as me turning 44 this year, I know that there's a lot of shit happened to me multiple times in my life. Did you ever have like shit happen to you, crisis happen to you multiple times in your life?
Of course.
Just like if men and women going through a divorce lost like half of their assets. Like, I just don't see how in the world people are able to pay 37, 38% of their gross income and be committed to a 30-year mortgage payment. That's a fucking joke to me. That's just how I look at it.
Nah, major facts. I mean, you're right, because the thing is what you're saying is people don't realize that this model that you're talking about, it worked 50 years ago. It could have worked 50 years ago, but the model has not changed with the times. And that's why so many people are struggling, because they sold you the home ownership dream. See, the thing is, banks needed money. They needed a way to lend money. That's what they are in the business of. Banks are in the business of lending money. So what they did is they said, and this is why all of these homes and developments and all that type of stuff was built post World War II, especially post World War II, is because the banks came together and said, yo, we need to lend money. We don't have nothing to lend money on. Let's develop real estate for people to live, and then use the real estate as collateral, and then tell them they need to come to us to get the money, to be able to borrow the money, to be able to buy the real estate. And that's where all of this propaganda really began. It was when they came together and they said, yo, we need to come up with a way that we can lend more money. And that's what they did, is they said, all right, let's start building more real estate. Let's have real estate. That's where we're going to be able to make a killing and lend and charge this for interest, charge this for more interest for places like this, charge less interest, charge less things for places like this. Let's put redlining in place, certain things like that, where, people that are not affluent or people that are poor or whatever, they're only going to be able to live over here. They're not going to be able to qualify for loans, just different things like that. And so when you look at everything that was created, that's why you're talking about 2025. That's why that 38% number, whatever that number is, it doesn't work for that anymore, because the cost of living has gone up compared to 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And we haven't adjusted. And it's no different than anything in life. Education, whether it's how you learn, with AI being in place, because AI is really fucking a lot of shit up right now. So how we learned 50 years ago, it isn't still relevant the way that we think it is today. Like, we got to adapt with times. And it's the same thing with real estate. When you're talking about purchasing a home, actually purchasing a home or purchasing a car, and really understanding, because most people, they really don't truly understand, in my opinion. You can let me know how you feel. Most people really don't understand the true cost of actually owning a home.
Facts.
And they don't understand that, oh yeah, I might have 20% to put down, but what you're not anticipating is if something breaks within that first 3 to 6 month period, or even a year time frame. And like he just went over the numbers, when you're only getting paid whatever $2,000 a month, and your mortgage payment is pretty high, your car payment is pretty high, and then your HVAC goes out, now what are you going to do? You're fucked.
Besides that, I also thought about, how would parents feel like, when you have children, right? Say your kids go to private school. Say, for instance, it could be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, or going to college. And then these kids coming back say, hey, you know what, Daddy, I learned this in school today. My teacher said my mortgage payment should never be more than 38%. I just want you to think about that for a second as a parent. How would you feel when you're paying people $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to teach your children, and they learn the wrong information when they come home? And that's why, I told Marvin, I was like, look, we have to make this video. Why? Because the world needs our help, needs those proper education, so that it will help people for real, instead of learning the wrong information out there, like keep on just getting screwed up, right?
Right.
Like think about this, Marvin. If you have a house, right, cost you 38% of your monthly income, do you see yourself in trouble?
Yeah, absolutely.
I see myself in trouble all day, every day. And that's why, guys, we have to make this video, so that you can't based on what other people are telling you. There's the term called trust but verify, okay? So today's video, I want you to take this home with you, is that every time you are making a buying decision, don't ever based on your emotion,
Facts.
based on a calculator on your phone. Okay,
Facts.
that's something you have to understand. And that's why we're here taking our time, to make these videos, giving our efforts, making a contribution to this community. I mean, we can't just lay down, play video games all day, but we are committed to make weekly videos for you guys, so that we can, get proper education. We can get more educated, instead of, like you said, being a sheep.
Yeah, being a sheep and not realizing that most people, I know a lot of times we get caught up with the announcement. People get caught up with the announcement, but they don't really pay attention to the results. Meaning the announcement is, oh, such and such bought a house. That's the announcement. The announcement sounds good. Like, oh yeah, I bought a house. But what you don't realize is behind the scenes, a lot of people that bought houses are actually struggling. And a lot of people that bought houses are actually one paycheck away from missing that payment, or a couple of paychecks away from having the bank potentially take that house back, or go to a short sale, or do whatever the case might be. See, and that's the other side of owning real estate that most people don't realize. They just see, oh, such and such has a house, they must be doing well. No, you have no idea what their payments are. You have no idea about none of that, because most people, they might be able to afford the house for now, but for the next 6 to 12 months, that might be a struggle for most people. Most people, like I said, and what most people do is they'll up their living standards or their mortgage based on what they're making. For instance, if somebody's making $1 million a year, they'll go out and buy a house that matches them making that $1 million a year, instead of going out buying a house that, for instance, somebody that's making $80,000 a year is buying. You know what I'm saying? So, for instance, somebody that's making $50,000, $80,000 a year, they'll go out and they'll buy a house for maybe $200,000, $300,000, right? Which is, I guess you could say standard or average. But with somebody that's making $1 million a year, they'll go out and buy a house that matches that. They'll increase their standard of living, instead of how they say staying humble. Instead of saying, you know what, yeah, I make $1 million a year, but I'm going to be conservative with my money, and I'm going to buy a house that only costs $200,000 or $300,000, so that way, like when you do that type of stuff, you're living comfortable. You're living very comfortably when you are making $1 million a year, but your expenses and your mortgage and all of that stuff is, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month. But what most people do is, most people will make $1 million a year, and their monthly expense might be $50,000, or it might be in the whatever what is it, 5 digits? It might be 5, 10, 5, 6 digits. You know what I mean? Because again, they think, oh, I'm making $1 million a year, I can afford to do a little bit more, or I can afford this. And this goes back to the last video we made. They're doing this, and they might not even potentially be making passive income. See, when you're making passive income, like we talked about in our last video, you may be able to get away with stuff like that. You know what I mean? You might be able to get away with buying $1 million house, but then your expenses, or making $1 million a year, and your expenses are $50,000 a month, or whatever, $60,000 a month. You may be able to get away with stuff like that when you're making passive income, a lot of passive income. But when you're not making passive income, and say you make $1 million a year, and your expenses are $50,000, but you have no idea when that next $50,000 is coming, you could seriously be fucked.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Speaking of that, right? I was also thinking that maybe in the future videos, I'm gonna, let everybody know that the house where we are making the videos right now, the house I live in, I actually kind of got this house for free. Okay, so even though there are people making over $1 million, but like he said, we are still being very, very conservative. You know, even though we can afford a house for 5 million, 10 million, but we are being conservative. Why? Because no one knows what the future holds. That's common sense, you
Right.
know. So all I'm saying here is whether you're making 100,000 a year or a million or 50,000, right? You're not gonna live a better life just because you're making a million. You're not gonna live a worse life because you only made 50,000. The quality of your life, it's all about your financial IQ. Okay, and that's why we have to make regular videos on this channel so that people can get educated financially, so that way they no longer depend on I have to make a million in order to be happy. Okay, they their happiness will be based on how smart they get, how good they are to manage their money, manage their wealth, in the future years to come. So today, this is all we want to talk about, and this is it for now. But just make sure you like and share, subscribe our video to the people you care about, so that way they can also be benefit from the stuff we share, our past experience, our knowledge, or our failure, whatever the case may be. Peace.